Thanks everyone for joining me. I'm super excited to talk to Hemini this morning, and I hope I didn't destroy your name too much. But vegan travel is something, since I've been changing my diet as well, I think a lot of people are realizing that they need to change their diet. So, and it can be a challenge to travel, and no matter what type of dietary restrictions you might have. So, welcome and thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, April.
So tell me about, I know we connected on Facebook about Switzerland and vegan travel. So the floor is yours. Tell me a little bit. Have you spent a lot of time in Switzerland? Was that a destination that you found to be good for vegan travel?
So just to confirm that I am not traveling in Switzerland. I have now been here for a number of years and it's my base. So I did end up coming here purely by accident.
Oh, really?
It wasn't on the list. I didn't want to, it hadn't even crossed my mind. Switzerland was not ever on the agenda. But a few years ago, some of you may know that the UK had this small thing called Brexit that happened.
Yes.
And as that happened, basically, I'm a freelancer. So all the contracts and everything stood still for a while. And it was getting really hard to find work because there was just no end to what was happening, what would happen now. And so I got a job contract in Switzerland, and they're like, "Do you want to go to Switzerland?" And I'm like, "Switzerland? Not really." Not on my list. I hadn't thought about it. And I thought, well, it's for 4.5 months. Go, get it done, and then I'll be back home. End of story. And actually, for 4.5 months, led to me being here for 6 years now. So
How long?
6 years.
6 years. Oh, wow.
I started with a 4.5 month contract, and here I still am 6 years on. So yeah, and it's beautiful. It's probably I love traveling, and I have to say it is one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been to, and I'm very privileged to be able to live here for a little while. And how much longer, I don't know, but I want to make the most of it. So, and it's
Yeah.
exactly as you see it on the postcards there. It's super clean, beautiful blue lakes, blue sparkling rivers, mountains, lush green, cows grazing around.
Yeah. So what
So,
city in Switzerland, may I ask?
so I'm in Geneva, which is on the Swiss French side. So those that may not know, Switzerland has four main languages, like languages that the country speaks and are considered official languages. So there's French, there's German, there's Italian, and also another dialect called Romanish. So they're the four main official languages of Switzerland.
Wow.
So
So
yeah,
do
for
you speak multiple languages?
so I when I came here, I didn't really speak much French, and actually, I didn't do any French at school. So I'm on the Swiss French side, but I've picked up French. So yes, I speak French, English, and I have two Indian languages that I speak.
Oh my gosh. Wow. And I think language is so important. I wish that's one thing I wish as a kid I would have done is taken a language class. And I know they say that taking language in school is different, but a conversational language is just I think it can open so many more doors.
Yeah, and I think it's really beautiful if you're traveling around to be able to just sort of dig a little bit beneath the surface
Yes.
and actually a really nice conversation about what it's like to live there, to understand the cultural differences, just to hear people's stories, because everyone has a story and it's
Yes.
beautiful. Yeah.
And that's why I
So,
love meeting people like yourself because we all have stories. And like you said, who knew you would, end up living this long in a country, Switzerland? And I think for many of us, we do just see the postcards, but to live there is, I'm sure, completely different.
yeah, and like anywhere, you have the pros and you have the cons. But well, I didn't know how long I was going to be spending here. So every day I was spending it as if it's I'd be leaving within the next few months. So it's really, really nice to kind of live here. And even though I've been here for 6 years, the idea is that on the weekends I'm still a tourist, and there's still so much to discover, and there's so many places to go. So I'm still doing all of that.
Yeah. So talk to me about being vegan. Is that something that's been part of your whole life, or something that you've transitioned into, like many of us that realized, we needed to make a switch for our body?
Yeah, so actually, I've been a vegetarian all my life. So I was vegetarian all my life. And then about 8 years ago, I decided to go vegan just simply because I saw. I was vegetarian through birth because of the cultural and religious aspects of growing up in a Hindu household.
Right.
So I've always been vegetarian. Tried meat. It was when I was younger. It didn't suit me, so I just kind of carried on being vegetarian. And then, yeah, 8 years ago, I decided to give veganism a try, just because I watched a lot of documentaries, and I saw that for me, how the violence that was still in vegetarianism was quite harsh. The
Mhm.
sort of the milking process,
Yeah.
the industry, and I just thought I'll give it a try. So I actually, weirdly, it was a really stupid time to try it, but I actually ended up saying I'll go vegan in beginning of December, when basically everything for Christmas
Oh,
starts.
yeah. That's a hard time.
Time to start, but there we go. So I went vegan then, and then there was this whole thing about going veganuary. So I just did that, and I thought, fine, I'm just going to stay vegan now. I'm happy doing this, and I made my peace with foods that I wasn't eating, or the things that I liked before or enjoyed, and I found different enjoyed other foods I could enjoy just as much. So
Yeah.
but it was really difficult coming. When I initially came to Geneva, veganism was a really odd concept. Like there was really nothing around. So obviously I could go to Asian restaurants because they're very well known for vegetarianism, and also a lot of the things just naturally are vegan.
Right.
But there was a lot of times where I was finding it really hard. So like I would go into the supermarket and there would be no margarine, for example. So like I could spend days eating bread with olive oil or
Oh my
whatever.
gosh, right.
It was really difficult. And then I could find soya milk occasionally. But 6 years on, things have changed quite a bit. So there's vegan ranges in all the supermarkets. There's all the different types of milks that everybody gets to enjoy, vegan cheese, all of this stuff. So it's all around. Eating out is not so bad. Again, Geneva and the Swiss French side in general are a little bit behind on the vegan concept. So you can find lots of cafes for, for like soups and lunch type stuff quite easily. But with the evening, it can get quite hard. So if you go to Asian restaurants, you're super fine, you'll be fine. But if you want to sort of go and try some um, like modern European in a vegan format, then it's much more difficult. So there's not a lot around, at least not in Geneva. But the Swiss German side has had one of the oldest vegan restaurants or vegetarian restaurants for years. So they've had vegetarian restaurants since the 70s.
Oh, really?
So,
Wow.
so they tend to get a little bit more and on their side, and especially from Germany, which is quite ahead in veganism. But the Swiss French side is a little bit less.
Right, right. And I was gonna say too, French food has so much, they use so much dairy in their dishes traditionally, so I'm sure maybe that's where it's hard for them to, even though you can go on the internet, there's recipes almost for everything if you're willing to try to cook it yourself, but
Exactly. And so like for me that's not so much of a problem because I cook at home. So I enjoy cooking, but it's always quite nice to go out once a week or whatever to have a nice.
yeah.
But I have to say it is up and coming. There's some good places that are around where you can get so a couple of nice places for brunches and stuff like that. But
Oh,
for as a
nice.
modern European food, like in the evenings, it tends to be burgers. And as a vegetarian, to be honest, I don't really like mock meat too
No,
much
I
because
don't either.
it's just like I'm happy eating vegetables. I want my vegetables to look like vegetables, and I completely understand for others why they might like it because it's a good substitute. But for me, I never ate meat, so for me that substitute idea wasn't really that important. I'm happy just to have vegetables and to be able to taste the vegetables. So
Yeah, exactly. Does Switzerland have like a lot of fresh foods, you'd say, like farmers markets and places like that?
yeah, that's really quite well known on sort of being close to France, etc. So yes, there is normally that you will find markets everywhere on every day as well.
Oh, wow.
And so yeah, and there's some nice ones on the weekend, so like on Saturday and Sunday. So one thing, if you ever do come to Switzerland, to take note of is on Sunday everything is
Oh,
so
really? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
they still keep that. That's still a sacred day for them. So they keep all the shops and everything is closed. So the only times you can maybe there in the some big cities, in the city centers around the station, you'll find things that are open and the supermarket. But on in general, it's very quiet. So they enjoy that day to be with their family.
Oh, wow. That is good to know because a lot of times we forget that thinking that, a lot of cultures have a day of just, this is a family day, day of rest, and that they continue to observe that. That's important. Um, as a traveler, would you have tips for people that have like, dietary restrictions or choices that they've made as far as eating, how to communicate that? Because that I think is always the intimidating factor. You do want to go to a restaurant, you do want to dine out with friends or family, and yet sometimes you feel like, oh, I'm going to ask this or I gotta, But on the other hand, it is important to what we put into our own bodies. So how do you
Yeah,
navigate that?
so actually, most places have like color coding or symbols against everything, so you can see what it is. I.e., is it meat? Is it fish? Does it have dairy? Is it gluten free, etc.? So most of those like dietary requirements are already covered, and you'll be able to take note on
Oh,
them from
nice.
the menu anyway. So it's not a problem. And they even tell a lot of the restaurants will, even on their menu, will tell you if you're eating beef or something, where the beef comes from, where the
Oh,
lamb comes from, so that you know exactly where your food has come from. And they're quite good with organic food as well in Switzerland. So that whole side of organic and seasonal is really still very important. So even being here for 6 years on, like sometimes I find it difficult because I'm from London, so you'd get a recipe and you'd go to the supermarket and you'd be able to find everything you want on that recipe sheet in the supermarkets in London.
yeah.
It's not the same here in Switzerland. You may not get the veg or whatever it is in the supermarket when you want it because they tend to be more seasonal. So there have been times where I've thought, oh yeah, I'll just make a pizza or whatever, and I'll
Yeah.
get some mushrooms and this and that, and you go and there's no mushrooms, and it's like so you've got to be a bit flexible. But that's the nice thing is that it is seasonal
Yeah, that
and
is actually nice. And it is also nice that it sounds like the menu's there because that's the thing that is frustrating here in the States. It's most places, I mean, some of the newer restaurants are starting to indicate on their menu if they cater to certain allergies or food type things, but I think more restaurants need to adapt that because if you just put the information there, then we're not having to ask questions and send the server back and forth to the kitchen multiple times.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that side of things, as far as restaurants go and their menus go, you're fine. And also just not to scare anyone, but they do, a lot of people do speak English here. So like I would say it's also one of, might not be the official language, but it's one of the official unofficial languages. So
So are there what best times to come to Switzerland for the best choices of food, would you say?
no, so the hard thing to remember, the hardest part is to remember that it's a mountainous country. And so because everything's surrounded by mountain, the food is mountainous food. So it's very stodgy in general, and it tends to be heavy and a lot of meats and cheeses because that's what they tend to have. But overall, I would say you can come to Switzerland any time of the year. If you come in the winter, you've got the snow on the mountains, and you can take advantage of that being on the slopes, either skiing or snowboarding or having fun and doing sledging,
Oh,
rackets. So if you like snowshoeing, all of that type of stuff. And it's really beautiful to come and experience that because it's quite a magical time of the year. And then other than that, if you come in the summer, then you want to be, we can go up and take a look at the glaciers because they're still around
oh,
for the
wow.
time being, whilst we're getting the same problems as everywhere else in terms of climate change. So that's slowly reducing. So yeah, you could, but there is still the glaciers that you can go up and see. And then when it's summer, people tend to make lots of use of the rivers and the lakes, so you can go swimming in there, paddle boarding, foiling, kites, like windsurfing in the lakes and stuff. So you can, if you're a water baby, it's completely fine. And then autumn is also beautiful when the leaves change color. And I'm a big hiker, so I like hiking. And so for me, autumn is like the perfect time to come.
Oh, wow.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about autumn in Switzerland. And I love the fall colors, the foliage change. So I would think that would be a stunning time to come.
Absolutely, yeah. It's beautiful because they have a lot of forests around. So as you see the colors changing, it really is beautiful. Just walking through the forests with a carpet of leaves.
Wow, yeah. Is it easy to get out of Geneva, say, to road trip in areas of these where the trees are in Switzerland?
Yeah, it's super easy. In fact, it's really easy with public transport. So they
Oh,
have great train systems that are completely, they're on par with the Japanese. So
oh my
with
gosh. Wow.
so they are definitely on time, and they you can take the train to any part, and buses, etc. So yeah, definitely it's an easy place to travel. It's also really easy to go hiking and things on your own. So I've, as a soloist, I've also done lots of hikes, so it's really well signposted. And the the crime rate is really, really very, very low in Switzerland. So you're completely safe as a woman hiking on your own in the middle of nowhere. It's, you
Oh,
have the
nice.
signpost, just follow the signpost and you'll get back around.
Oh, I like that. Great information, Hermione. So thank you so much for sharing about coming to Switzerland. It sounds like a beautiful place. And do you have a spot where people can reach out if they have questions about traveling to Switzerland, especially since you live there? So,
I guess I could leave my email with you. So if anybody wants to, they're more than welcome to just to ping me and email me. It's not a problem.
okay, great. We'll drop that in the show notes then. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
I'll also send some links because that might be easier.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thank you so much for sharing about Switzerland.
No worries.